U visa is a special visa granted to victims of certain violent crimes who have suffered physical or emotional abuse and are helping law enforcement in the investigation or prosecution of the crime. This visa offers great benefits like access to a social security number, a work permit, protection from deportation, access to government services, and a path to lawful permanent residency, and finally, citizenship, the holy grail. So today, I'm going to share with you what are the crimes that could qualify you for a U visa. Ready? Let's get started. USCIS provides a list of 23 qualifying crimes, which you can find on their website. I'm going to leave the link in the description below if you want to see USCIS website and what they have on the qualifying crimes. But before going into what those crimes are specifically, let me emphasize that although these are unfortunate events, like nobody wakes up saying, "Oh, I can't wait to be a victim of a crime." My intention in sharing this list is to let you know that if you've been a victim of any of these crimes, you may have options that benefit you. Many of these crimes can be confusing as they are similar to each other. So having an experienced U visa immigration attorney is key to helping you define which is your best ticket to lawful status. Let's jump into the first crime. Not in any particular order, but stalking. What is it? If someone repeatedly follows or monitors you, causing you fear or distress, you can report it to the police, and even if there was no physical contact, it could still qualify as stalking. For the following crimes, it's crucial that you cooperate with the authorities. Actually, it's true for every crime, but some of them more important than others, as USCIS needs your cooperation in exchange for protection. If you receive threats to prevent you from reporting a crime, well, those in themselves are also crimes. So let's talk about some of them. Blackmail. This focuses on the use of private or compromising information to coerce you, the victim, to comply with the blackmailer's demands. Extortion. Extortion is broader and can include threats of physical harm, property damage, or even threats of legal action or false reports, not necessarily based on private information. The difference between them is that blackmail specifically uses compromising information as leverage, while extortion can use a variety of threats, including violence or property damage. Additionally, perjury, which is lying under oath in a legal proceeding, and obstruction of justice are also on the list. Telling the truth and reporting when someone isn't being truthful is fundamental to either of these two options. Let's talk about protections for foreign workers. Fraud in foreign labor contract. That happens when there are false promises about working conditions or wages. Additionally, crimes protecting you from being forced to work against your will, usually under threat. Involuntary servitude or peonage. Well, involuntary servitude focuses on direct coercion and lack of freedom to leave work, while peonage involves forced labor due to debts, where the structure of the debt prevents the person from ever actually being free. These crimes may qualify you also for a T visa, but that's a question for another day. I just point that out. That sometimes there are more than one option, even if you're a victim of a crime and cooperated with law enforcement. USCIS takes the deprivation of your liberty and its abuse very seriously. Other crimes that may describe these situations are slave trade. That's the practice of capturing, selling, and transporting people as slaves. Trafficking. That's the recruitment, transportation, transfer, or harboring of persons by force or fraud for the purposes of exploitation. Abduction. That's the act of taking someone away by force or deception without necessarily having a motive for exploitation. Being held hostage. That's the retention of a person to force others to comply with certain conditions or demands. Kidnapping, similar to abduction, but usually includes the element of ransom or the intention to get something in return. False imprisonment. It involves restricting a person's freedom of movement in a confined space without legal justification, like locking somebody in a closet or in a bathroom or in a basement. Unlawful criminal restraint, similar to illegal confinement, but may not involve complete confinement. It simply restricts freedom of movement. A key point about unlawful criminal restraint is that it can apply even if an authority detained you without a valid legal reason. Again, some of these may qualify for a T visa. Crimes related to sexual assault. Unfortunately, we see too many of these, but First is sexual assault. That's any type of sexual activity that is carried out without the consent of the other person. It may include unwanted touching, forced penetration, or any other form of coercive sexual contact. Rape involves the forced and non-consensual penetration of one person by another using physical force, deception, or when the victim cannot give consent due to physical or mental incapacity. So think of drugging someone. They can't say no because they're not able to do it because of the drug you gave them. Prostitution. That's the practice of engaging in sexual activities in exchange for money or other forms of compensation. For example, a person is forced by a pimp to have sexual relations with clients in exchange for money that must be given to the pimp. Sexual exploitation. That's the abuse of a person for sexual purposes in exchange for benefits, which may include money, power, or status. For example, someone is trafficked to another country and forced to work in the sexual entertainment industry under threats. For minors, the crime of abusive sexual content includes the production, possession, or distribution of sexual material that involves minors. Attention, Immigration Nation. Next crime is assault with a weapon. This applies even if someone points a weapon at you without using it. It could happen, for example, during a robbery with a firearm or a knife. In the case of the next crime, domestic violence, this crime is often involved in VAWA scenarios, that's Violence Against Women's Act, but the abuser in a VAWA scenario has to be a close relative, like a parent, spouse, or a child, who also is a U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident. Basically, your abuser is a citizen or a resident and a close family relative. If you're not married or your abuser isn't legal in the United States, well, then a U visa may be your only option. Again, talking about domestic violence. It's important to understand that immigration is governed by the federal definition of crimes, but most crimes are investigated by police under state law. This means that we need to investigate to explain how the facts of your case are the same or similar to a federal crime to make this a qualifying crime for U visa purposes. The definitions I gave you and am giving you are the federal. So whether you're a victim of a crime in California, New York, Texas, Florida, New Jersey, you have to do the same analysis. And a crime in Florida may qualify, whereas one in Texas may not. Why? Because of the definition of the crime in the state and the facts of what happened. Let me give you an example. Harassment. It can be considered stalking or domestic violence under the federal definition. Consulting an expert is fundamental to help you decide what your best option is. Various cultural customs in other countries can be considered serious crimes in the United States. Two of them are incest, that's sexual relations between close family members, and female genital mutilation, practice involving the alteration or injury of female genital organs for non-medical reasons. Finally, there are other related crimes. Crimes that, although not specifically on the list, are related or can be considered similar to one of the 23 crimes on the list. If you're a victim of a crime and you're not on the list or you're not sure, seek expert advice. Don't miss your opportunity. To apply for a U visa, unfortunately, it's not enough to have been a victim of these crimes. You also need certification from law enforcement agency, such as the police, prosecutor's office, or the court, confirming that you've been helpful, are being helpful, or are likely to be helpful in the investigation or prosecution of the crime in the future. So the first step is to report the crime and document the physical and psychological impact it has had on you. After that, you must continue cooperating, as lack of follow-up could lead to miscategorization of your crime, or law enforcement may choose not to help you with your U visa application. And guys, we've reached the end of the video. If you or someone you know has been a victim of these or other crimes in the United States, please do not hesitate to seek help. Reporting it is the first step to receiving protection and justice. Contact an immigration attorney. Make sure your voice is heard. Remember, we're in this together, and there are resources and people ready to help you. Take care, Immigration Nation. See you next time. Hey, did you like the video? I invite you to watch another video where I share more tips on how to protect your reputation as an immigrant. Until next time.